Thank you, Austin. Look, first of all, I'd like to welcome Jared from the City of Bayside, and thanks for agreeing to participate in today's panel discussion. We're delighted that Jared was given approval by Council because we believe that having a customer talk about what it is that we're doing just adds a lot more validity to the discussion. And interesting, in regard to Bayside, they're what we would classify as a medium-sized council, yet as far as technology and innovation goes, they're certainly one of the more progressive when you look at the suite of products and the technology services that they've deployed. We appreciate the opportunity that we've been given to partner with Bayside. We've done a lot of work together on their and assisted them with their digital transformation journey, and specifically we're now going to talk about the digital permits. So before I hand over to Anchor and Jared to talk about that journey, I just ask Jared a question, which is how many permits are we talking about here?
That's a very good question, Michael. It's a very hard one to answer. So in theory, it should be around about 120,000 permits, but we'll probably issue around 140 to 160,000 permits. So the numbers just weren't adding up.
The purpose of that question was one of the themes for today was data. The other one is AI. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later on, but 140,000 permits, we're talking about a lot of data. So what were the challenges that you faced in managing that number of permits?
I think just the volume alone, 140,000 permits, what's actually happening with them. Obviously mitigating fraud would be play a big part in that factor, along with residents' expectations around, we're all receiving more and more mail and correspondence these days, invoices via social media platforms, emails. Residents are asking the question, why can't we get a digital permit? Why do we have to have a physical permit on a vehicle? So, yeah.
So the drivers then for then making the move or the decision to go ahead and then pilot the digital permit, do you want to maybe touch on a few of those, and then I suppose we can start that discussion with Anchor as to the journey that we've been on with you for the last couple of years in designing, developing, and then implementing the digital permit.
Yeah, so our initial concept was to go a 100% digital model, and how's that look? Just to make it a lot easier, you can track it, you can manage it, it reduces fraud. However, a decision was made to ease residents into that process, so the hybrid model was selected, and that would allow residents to choose either a digital format or a physical format, and that would give us more control over how those permits are issued. Obviously, digital is ideal, physical is acceptable. What happens then, however, we can help residents by offering the digital and therefore not having the issue of misplacing or losing their permits or having the permits left on a vehicle that is happens to be in Queensland. When you've got a digital permit, that permit can be transferred within 5 minutes at any point in time. So just the convenience of the digital permit is acceptable, and residents gravitate towards that. What we find is residential parking permits. On one of the slides, we've got probably a 95% uptake for residential parking permits, and we had a council resolution where we had to send out physical permits to people that got their mail by post. So therefore we've got a far reduced beach parking permit process, if that makes sense. So we've got around, I think, don't quote me on that, we've got an uplift around 18% on digital for beach parking permits, which is quite impressive. We were forecasting around 11%, But it also adds another option. So rather than, we're able to track those permits now. So misplaced, lost, stolen, we do have an option available where before we did not. So.
And Anchor, do you want to maybe talk about the journey that we've undertaken with the City of Bayside?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think when we started, it was an idea that we're going to go completely digitized, and pretty much there was a process or a time in the process where we wanted this change to happen rapidly and quickly. However, we also realized during this implementation that there is a cohort of people who are still utilizing the non-digital permits and would like to keep it, retain it, and eventually it's going to change over a couple of years period, not that you can convert everything overnight. So it was more of an agile process, and I guess we realized midway that yes, let's start to implement how we can recognize physical permits digitally while issuing new digital permits to the society and the community as well. And how we can assist the overall community, not only in embedding this particular change, but also to come on the journey with us, rather than saying that, here's the digital permits, take it or leave it. That kind of worked very well for us, and I think it was implemented really wonderfully well within the community as well. Just one more bit from the from the rangers' perspective. While we were converting things digitally, while we are talking more about AI today, it's a great piece of challenge. By moving towards digitalization of the permits, we are introducing a problem to the society or to the enforcement rangers and stuff, that they no longer can see physical stickers, and hence it is an added time for them to actually make a decision and to enforce. Now, that particular problem we try to resolve by AI, wherein by the scanning of the vehicle, it can actually now tell you whether there is a valid permit, valid payment, and everything, so that you're not adding on to the time that you have saved somewhere. You are continuing and overall improving the process.
So, Anchor, maybe what I'll do is I'll revert back to Jared, and Jared, you can maybe talk about what those challenges are. So, a parking officer would have in the past, because it was a manual process, would have looked at the dashboard of the vehicle to see if there was a valid permit. So, in line with what Anchor's talking about, do you want to maybe talk about the challenges that you faced post-implementation with then being able to validate and verify if there was a permit?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. So from an enforcement point of view, obviously officers go up, look at the vehicle, establish whether it's got a permit, whether it be a beach parking permit, whether it be a ticket from a paid meter, and then they move on without having to punch in the registration, because they can clearly and visibly see the permit. So with the digital permits, obviously they have to punch in every vehicle registration to determine whether the vehicle is or has a valid reason or valid payment or valid permit to be parked there. So that did cause a time delay front end. Now, in saying that, you try and take the positives out of everything. From the appeal perspective, it reduced because there was no more of this. The permit fell down, the permit was stuck on the back window, the ticket blew off the dashboard, and for those also, just touch on it as well, we upgraded our ticket machines as well. So we don't have ticket machines anymore, we have pay-by-plate machines. So the machines have no moving parts effectively. They don't issue paper, they don't need to be restocked. Motorists just punch it in the registration, ABC123, and the payment gets accepted from there. So now when the officer punches in the registration, it also looks for payments and it looks for the digital permit. So there is a plus and a time saver, a little bit of a time saver there, but yeah, it would be a lot more efficient with the license plate recognition, or OCR.
Yeah, And another thing is, while we were doing the permit integration, we were able to get reportings embedded as we realized that it is always valuable to identify how many permits of what category and who's been applying, automated decisioning, and not like you have applied and you're going to get it, but verifying documents and approving, making a decision, alerting individuals within a matter of couple of minutes. There has been stories, I'm sure Jared would like to tell, where residents were quite amazed to see, I just applied, it sounds unreal that I got it right away in terms of the permit.
Yeah, that's correct. So obviously there's one good story which I was telling. The guy went to go fishing with his son on a Sunday. He's an owner of property in Bayside. He's entitled to beach parking permits. He applies for his beach parking permit on the Sunday. Obviously wanted to take his son down to the bay and go for a fish. He applied for it. Within 5 minutes, he had the approval email in his email notifications. He was that impressed. He sent an email saying what a great system it was, which is, for people that try and implement change, there's always that element of push. What we're seeing now is a real change in people's behaviour, curving towards probably that more digital process. And the other thing is obviously the usability of the system. So for some people that might be challenged with technology, they might not have access to a computer, that they know somebody who does. So you can get somebody, or their brother, their sister, their daughter, their granddaughter, who it might be, they can actually apply for the permits on their behalf as well. So this 90-year-old was blown away. She's like, oh really? It's like, yeah, no problems at all. She was like, this is really great. And so she didn't want the permit for herself. She wanted the permit for her children. But the system allows that, and they are totally transferable. So it has that flexibility and freedom to allow residents to do that. So all of a sudden that need for a physical permit for her kids to fight over become a lot more sustainable.
Yeah, and I guess that's the process which I wanted to touch base on initially, that we innovated while we came across these individual use cases, and Bayside has been a really great partner from case study point of view in figuring those things out, that how do I cater for this? And while we say digitization, innovation, it is a very good example that without thinking the end-to-end solution, no matter which direction you go, there is always something that is missing. However, we actually managed to evolve over a period of a year and a half to come to a product which is covering the entire aspect, no matter if it is an 18-year-old applying for a permit, or if it is a 90-year-old or 95-year-old wanting a permit. It is all covered from that perspective. I think I'll request Barbara to run this particular slide of a video, which is showing how we reduce the time for rangers to actually verify for a permit. So it is us partnered with Microsoft, wherein we have got a camera turned on the app, auto issue app. It scans the cars. While it scans the cars, it actually verifies it figures out in the entire image where the number plate is and what exactly it has to read. It reads the exact license plate number. Once it identifies the license plate number, it actually goes back to the system, finds the permits, finds for the payments, and then make a recommendation that should you infringe the vehicle because there is no non-compliance, no payment, that is red. And that's the one in blue means either the payment is there or the permit is there. So you don't have to take an action. So you can ignore that. And it's a matter of seconds, like 3 to 5 seconds, you scan, move ahead, scan, move ahead. So while we are taking away those physical permits and the advantage from the enforcement officers to see and make a decision, we are, on the other hand, giving them the power of cognitive intelligence to actually identify and do the same stuff.
Anchor, do you want to, there was a presentation earlier today from Microsoft in regard to AI, and maybe talk about some of the logic and the fact that we are using Microsoft there.
Yeah, and that's right. So this is again on the similar lines from what Microsoft talked this morning. When we get this particular image, we are sending it back to Microsoft, and Microsoft is, no matter what angle, no matter what lighting, as far as human eyes can read slightest of that license plate number, we are able to, or Microsoft now is able to identify, figure it out that this is the license plate and I need to read the characters of this license plate. And the beauty is it does not take into account any noise in the system, like I've got NSW and a lot of plates are customized these days, which can confuse easily. But this system is intelligent enough and learned the areas or the noise enough to be able to ignore that very clearly and just pick the exact detail. To the accuracy, we claim it as 99.9% accurate within 5 seconds period. That's like about a year ago. I don't think we could have imagined that level of accuracy at a 160-degree angle with which it works. It's really game-changing in terms of AI and where we have moved with these technologies.
I think that's pretty close to the end of our presentation. So I hope that you've enjoyed hearing a little bit. This is about on-street, so I know that a lot of people in the room are in the off-street parking, but on-street being a little bit different. But we're pleased to have the opportunity today to share what we've done in partnership with our customer, Bayside City Council. So thank you.
Thank you guys. That was very good. Any questions? I can see Laurie over here, ready to go.
Yeah, I have probably 3 questions. How many registration details per resident do you allow? And are they an individual permit for each application, or can you put multiple registrations on one permit?
This is where it becomes very challenging for Duncans, and we've worked really well with them. So Bayside has obviously a residential parking policy, and we have a foreshore beach parking permit policy. 2 very different policies. Within our residential parking policy, there are residential parking option 1 and 2, residential beach parking option 1 and 2. So it depends on where you sit in that scheme, depends on what you can apply for. So for a residential option 1, you can apply for 4 free residential parking permits for vehicles. They have to be affixed to that address. For a visitor parking permit, option 2, you can apply for 3 free ones plus 1 visitor at a fee for 3 years. For beach parking, or your foreshore parking permit, you're entitled to 2 beach parking permits, so 2 registrations, but you can change those as many times as you want, many times a day, many times a year. It's totally up to you. And we've got it down to about 15 minutes. So from the moment you go on and you transfer that vehicle registration, it will notify the officer's device within 15 minutes.
Okay. The other question I have is my brother lives in Bayside and I live in Kingston. Am I able to apply because I have the same surname? How do you verify that I actually live at his address?
So you're referring to the beach parking permit, I take it, or the residential parking? So residential parking permit, the vehicle needs to be registered to that address. That needs to be verified. And then if he hasn't utilised his full quantity of permits, and that vehicle's registered to that address, that's where it gets the free residential parking permit. For a beach parking permit, effectively you don't need to, if he wants to, you can't log on because it won't qualify you as the owner of that property. It will divvy your brother as the qualifier for that property. So he can go in, or his wife, or family email address, whatever he wants to use. It's up to them. So it will, from an owner's point of view, it checks. So we don't ask for any details we don't already hold in our system. It will then verify the details he gives us back end of our system, which is what we've created with Duncans, and it will that's how it approves it straight away. Now, obviously, with a tenant, we can't do that. So with a tenant, there is a, I think we're averaging probably 1-2 hours in regards to, that's working days. But in regards to weekends, they'll have to wait for the next working day to get theirs approved because they are tenants. We need to verify the information that they've provided. Answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Do you have a high-level integration with Vic Roads to verify that a vehicle's registered there, or do you have to apply to Vic Roads?
No, the owner provides that detail to us.
Okay.
Laurie, it sounds like you're going to test the system.
I think he was trying to get a free permit for his brother.
Anchor, did you want to touch on the
Yeah.
processes and how...
Just to just a little bit addition to the answer. There is always a process where you are in doubt or the system is in doubt. It can be referred back to an individual who can make a manual decision or even a manual override. So it's not always the case that system is right. If there is for a reason you need a manual intervention, it can always be referred back to an individual who can reject, accept, or even require more documents, ask for more documents to be uploaded onto the system before making a decision.
And just, yeah, and also the permit could be cancelled if it was fraudulently used. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, one more. When you're speaking about documents to verify, do you have an automatic verification system on those documents, or do they have to be viewed by a council staff member?
So to a certain documents like assessment numbers, which is mapped to the council, there is an automated process, but to a certain others, there is none at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I think Jared and Laurie can get a room later and work out all the problems with cancelled permits. No, I'd like to, is there any more questions before we finish up? I'm going to do an audible and I'm going to do the Mossie's quiz next, lighten up the room a little bit, but thank you very much to Barbara, Michael, Anchor,